Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here at the Patriot Desk. This is the United States edition on Monday nights and our Canadian edition on Thursday nights. Welcome you all for joining us. Folks, we've got a lot to talk about tonight, a lot going on here in the United States. And one of our top stories tonight does involve Canada. It involves the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and we'll get to him in a minute, folks. But first, I want to share with you this is of concern, I'm sure, to Americans all across the country. This just came in. The Washington, D.C. mayor, Mayor Browser, all right, Mayor Muriel Browser, on Monday, which is today, she actually ordered her team, her political team, to line the streets of Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. with 51 star flags in honor of Flag Day. Now, tomorrow's Flag Day in the United States of America. To me, every day is Flag Day. I'm always flying my flag. But this mayor decides not to fly the American flag, but to fly a flag with 51 stars, trying to make a statement. In her words, that the 700,000 people in her city who are taxpayers should be represented. Now, here's the problem, folks. The last time that I counted, this flag had 50 stars. Just to make sure that I wasn't seeing things, I checked another flag, 50 stars. She goes off on her own and decides to waste taxpayer dollars and have hundreds of flags with 51 stars sewn on it to make a statement that has been made in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now here we go again, a Democrat, socialist, communist making a statement using tax dollars. You know, the mayor should spend more time maybe thinking about spending taxpayer dollars on reducing crime in that city. I think there's unbelievable amount of shootings every day. And by the way, with regard to those shootings, Washington, D.C. has some of the toughest gun laws in the nation, but shootings are still up. So why does a mayor decide to go to the point of wasting tax dollars and putting up flags, flying flags that are not the American flag? 51 stars. Now, Puerto Rico wants to be a state. Now, what are they going to do? What are we going to do when they come along and says, well, tomorrow's Flag Day, we'll just, next to the Puerto Rican flag, we'll put a flag with 52 stars because we'll help out the Washington, D.C. mayor with her 1 star. And we'll add another star and then another star and another star. You see, folks, this is America going wild. It's just going too far. This is the Democrat Socialist Communist Party completely getting out of hand. This is why, and I insist on using these words, that come November of this year, 2022, we have to totally, without question, wipe the Democrat Party of this country off the face of the earth. They are our enemies. They are the enemies of the people of the United States of America who believe that government should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, there are good Democrats. I'm not saying all of them are the enemies, but I'll tell you the leaders of the party are. And let me add this, and I know my friends are going to get upset over this, but, business is business. Friendship is friendship. Well, this is business now. This is the business of the survival of our country. How you can tell me, look at me straight in the face and tell me that you're going to vote for a Democrat come November is beyond my comprehension. And I've challenged union leaders. I want them to come on the air. I want the carpenters union leader, the ironworkers union leader, the Teamsters union leader, the teachers union leader, and some of the leaders of other industries and manufacturers and corporations around America. Come on the air with me and explain to the American people, and people, by the way, all over the world who are watching, how you can support, endorse, and vote for a Democrat after they took your jobs away. Robots are replacing your union workers. Prices in this country, as well as others, I'm sure, are high. They're skyrocketing. People are getting laid off. Every time I walk into a supermarket, there are less and less checkout aisles where it's being manned by human beings. It's just out of control, absolutely out of control. So the only way we fix this problem in America, and I shared this with people all over the world, the only way we fix the problems we have, unless you're a communist country like China, and a near communist country like Canada, which we're going to help free soon, you got to get to the polls. You got to get there and you got to vote. Now I hear from people, well, you want us to go vote, but the elections are rigged. And we say, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, we're not going to go vote. Let me just share this with you. Number one, let the investigators do their job. Let them do their job, but don't take the position you're not going to vote, because then truly you have proven the elections are rigged. Because the goal of the Democrat Communist Party is to discourage the American people who are on the Republican side of the aisle, discourage them from go voting. Don't vote. Don't vote. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to see your rights being taken away, just like they're being slithered away in Canada, slithered away in European countries. Is that what you want, America? You want your country to be taken over by communists? Well, it is. So when I hear Republicans say, well, I'm not going to go vote. Well, you're not going to go vote. So when you don't vote, the Democrats come out en masse and vote. And before you know it, it's over. There won't be elections. There won't be elections. If you don't think that cannot happen, it can. And it will. If the American people do not stand up and strike back at the voting booths. And I'm talking to Republicans. I'm talking to Democrat conservatives. I'm talking to unaffiliated and independents. A vote not for a Republican is a vote for Democrat communism. But what about the rhinos? The Republican in name only. What about those creatures, those characters? Well, folks, I've got to tell you, I supported America First candidates this time around and will continue to do that. Some of them won, some of them lost. Those who lost, some of them lost to establishment Republicans. Now, here's the rub. What do? Do you say, well, I'm not going to vote for that establishment Republican because I can't get the whole pie? So you're then telling me you're not going to vote for a Republican who maybe is, let's say, 50% in agreement with our policies. You're not going to vote for that person, but you're going to vote for who? By not voting for the Republican, you're voting for a communist Democrat. It doesn't make sense to me. Get rid of the personal agendas, folks. Get rid of the personal political agenda. This country was not founded by one person. It will not be saved by one person. It was not founded by one party. It will not be saved by one party. It was founded and it will be saved by the American people. By the people who believe in this flag and by the people who believe in the Constitution of the United States. To surrender your right to vote is surrendering your country to communism. And I believe without a doubt that Chinese Communist Party is deeply involved in discouraging people in this country from voting. If it's rigged, if it was rigged, well, then you know what? The evidence will come. Let the evidence come. Let the investigators do their job, but don't surrender at this point in time. Do not surrender. Because then it won't matter if they rig it or not. Because by you not voting, by you not saying at least I'll get half a pie instead, if I can't get the whole pie, then you rigged it. You rigged the election because you fell into that trap. We do the best we could with what we have. We pray to God Almighty that he protects this country. I believe he will. I believe he does. And then we're going to see what happens in November of 2022. And let me just say this to the American audience here, to my colleagues, to my patriots. Don't you think countries around the world are watching what's going to happen here in November of 22? Don't you think that guy up there in Canada, his name's Trudeau, who visited us, and I'll get to that in a minute, don't you think he's worried, concerned? Of course he is. Because if he sees the Democrat Communist Party get wiped out here, his party's going to get wiped out there. Because the Canadians are not going to tolerate what's going on there. They don't tolerate it already. In fact, I understand that even members of their parliament who are liberal are now saying, hey, enough is enough. Not because they have any love for conservatives, but they just have love for themselves, like the Democrats here. The Democrats here are turning on Biden, not because they love us as conservatives, not even because they love the country, because if they did, we wouldn't have got into the mess we're in. It's because they love themselves. They love their jobs. It's a matter of survival. I said that a long time ago. This is going to get to a point where the Democrat Party members are going to jump overboard. They're going to leave Biden on a sinking ship, and the ship is going to sink. They're just going to make sure they're not on that sinking ship. But the problem they're facing now is that November 22, the ship that they get on is the ship we're going to torpedo as conservatives, and we're going to sink it. That's why I share with people across the globe, especially our friends in Canada, don't worry. Don't worry. I know it's depressing. It's distressing. You got to stay the course. You got to fight the good fight of faith. You've got to never, ever surrender. That's what communists want us to do. They just want to wear us out, wear us down. So when I get around the United States of America, and when I hear Republicans here tell me, well, you know what, Lieutenant, I don't think I'm going to go vote. Well, you know what? You just surrendered my country to the communists. You're not going to go vote. Come on. Get up out of bed and go vote. No excuses. This is America. And we'll deal with any situation that comes up. But to be anchored to a communist party that is working very hard to discourage us from going to vote in November, absolutely, absolutely unacceptable. That's what we need to do. Let's be a little smarter. Let's have faith, my goodness. Let's have faith. Let's have faith in God, faith in ourselves, faith in country. Because our children are watching too. I've taught my kids their whole lives, you just don't lay down and surrender. You fight and fight and fight. And you fight to win, not to lose. What's the Bible say? I want to inject the Bible a minute. What's the Bible say when you fight the enemy? If anyone listening and watching tonight could tell me that they could find any area of the Bible where you could find where the Lord says to fight the enemy, and he said, well, turn around and run there. Put your back towards the enemy. No, he says, put on the full armor of God, the helmet of salvation, right? The breastplate of righteousness. I mean, every single area of the Bible that you read, when God says, when Jesus says, he says, you fight the enemy, you face the enemy, and you defeat the enemy. There is no retreating. We have no choice. It's either do or die. It's do or die for the Canadian people. It's do or die for the American people. It's do or die for free people around the world. What we're going to do, and we're not going to die, because we're going to win. We always have, and we always will. So keep that in mind as we move forward. So Mayor of Washington, D.C., you can have your 51-star flag. It certainly is not my flag. My flag is right here. Now, let's get to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Here's what he said today. Today, he released a press report that he tested positive for COVID-19 just days after meeting with President Biden in Los Angeles for the Summit of the Americas. Now, let me just say this to you. First and foremost, I hope he gets well. I don't want to see anybody sick. He has a family, he has kids. We have an obligation as Christians. Think about this, folks. Think about this. To pray for people, whether they're friend or foe. You put politics aside, just pray that the man doesn't get deathly ill. I really mean that. I don't want to see that happen to anybody. But saying that, maybe he needs to learn a lesson, as Joe Biden needs to learn a lesson, and as others need to learn a lesson. The government should never mandate vaccines. Justin Trudeau, after this release, folks, you know what he said? He says, well, this is why you need to get vaccinated. That's why you need to get vaccinated. If I didn't have the vaccination, I wouldn't have gotten this slightly measure, if you will, of the COVID-19. Well, how do you know that, Justin? How do you know that? Because if that's true, then explain to me this, Justin. Explain this to me, that the Health and Human Services Secretary, Javier Barcia, has, for the second time in less than a month, tested positive for COVID-19. Explain that, Justin. You see, the fact of the matter is, you say there, Mr. Prime Minister, that because you got the shot and the boosters, that it was not as bad as it could be. Here's another guy in the Biden administration that got the shot, got the booster. You guys have gotten so many boosters, like I said before, you guys ought to go on the next SpaceX by Elon Musk and go to the moon. You got so many boosters, they'll take you to the moon. The fact is, you can have all the boosters you want, in my view, for the fact checkers. This is not facts, folks. My view. All right, I want to make sure I say that. In my view, if you get a shot, you get a vaccine. If it works, you don't need a booster. If it works, you're not going to get very sick with COVID-19. But if it don't work, you're going to get a booster. So if you get the booster and you still get the COVID, that means the booster didn't work. Now we're up to booster number 4. So my point is this. Look, do what you want. Do what you want. The government should not mandate any of this stuff. You talk to your doctor. I've got friends that got the vaccine. That's fine. They're my friends. They do what you want. I have nothing against them. They have every right to get the vaccine. Those who have not gotten the vaccine, I say to them, well, that's okay too. That's okay too. In other words, talk to your doctor, for goodness sakes. Talk to your doctor. Make the decision with your medical professional, not with some prime minister or president sitting in a big cushy chair, just stroking with a pen saying, well, I'm just going to enslave everybody and they're going to get this vaccine because if they don't, they're not going to move from Texas to Kansas without showing a vaccine passport. Well, they tried that in New York and boy, did that go over well. How many people got beaten? How many people got in fights? Unbelievable, folks. Unbelievable what government leaders will do to try to control people. So now Justin Trudeau has COVID-19. We have the Health and Human Services Secretary in Washington, D.C. of the Biden administration has COVID-19 after getting multiple boosters. And the thing about what's going on in Washington, D.C. in the White House, there are a lot of people that got this COVID-19 after they took the booster shots, after they took the jab, and then they get the booster shots. So if anybody can tell me with any reason why we should follow science, well, I've got to tell you, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Follow science. All I hear is follow science. Well, how about following your instinct, following your common sense, following the intellect that God given you to make a decision what's right for you? The government has no right telling me what I am going to put in my body. No right at all. The government has no right telling any parent that they should give their child a jab. No right at all. Government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. People control the government, not the other way around. But you see, we have ceded that power. We have given that power to the government. And you know how we did it, folks? I'll speak for those of us in America, and the Canadians, I'm sure, could explain what's happened there. But in America, the reason why we are in the pickle we're in is because a lot of people don't vote. This last primary, low percentage rate of people went to vote. People don't vote. I don't care all the excuses you want. You got to go vote. And if you don't vote, this is what happens. So now we got the some sort of a monkey virus coming out. I forget the name of it, monkeypox or something. Well, this seems to have, it's coming and going. You know, they're talking about it, then they're not talking about it. They're all confused, folks. They don't know how to distract us here in the United States from the real problem we're facing. And the real problem is that our economy is tanking. People are suffering. Children can't get baby food or formula. I've never seen it like this. Never seen it like this. I'd say one of the few men in the United States of America who are cheering on the sidelines is former President Jimmy Carter. The worst president in my lifetime. In fact, the worst president who ever took office was Jimmy Carter up until Joe Biden became president. Jimmy must be jumping for joy on his peanut farm there. But Joe Biden, he has absolutely devastated this country. And what is appalling, folks, what is appalling, help me figure this out. The people who work for him, I know they're leaving and resigning in droves, but how could anyone face any American across this country who can't afford food, who can't afford clothing, who can't afford gasoline, who can't survive, if you will, based on what's happened to the economy? How can the Democrats say, good job? AOC did. Get a load of that one. AOC, Cortez, right, in New York. Joe, you're doing a good job. Keep it up. Well, her goal, in my view, is to destroy the United States of America. So he is doing a good job. November can't come soon enough. Can't come soon enough. It's going to happen. We're working hard here at Campaign for America. We're working very, very hard. I want to tell you something to my fellow patriots. And I'm using Canada as an example because they seem to be ahead of us with regard to two things. One, they're ahead of us with regard to a communist ideology taking hold of their country. It's there. It's coming here. But they're holding the line and they're fighting back. And I'm understanding that they're winning, winning, winning. And come Thursday night, we're going to talk about how they're winning. And we need to learn some lessons because they're sticking to their guns. They really are. And they were able to get the word out through us and through others. Now, think about this again to my fellow friends and countrymen here in America. You know, we're not used to our media, except for two outlets, I believe. PBS may be one of them, media being controlled by the government. Well, they got complete government control of their media. So they can't get the news. They don't get the news that we get. So they depend on multimedia outlets like ours and others in their country to get the news. Imagine that in Canada. You ever believe that, folks? You ever believe that? I mean, this is how off the radar we had them. But here's my point. So it's our obligation and it's our duty to free people all over the world, especially those in Canada who are living in freedom, to get them the news they need. But they got us the news this time around. And the way they got us the news is that they stood strong and they enabled to feed us information, thousands and thousands. I got stacks. This whole room is filled, literally, folks, from way up here with letters and emails from Canadians and Americans who have relatives in Canada, giving us information that we're able to share and spread, and others share and spread to the point where the Ohio State Legislature took action and recommended that the Trudeau government be placed on the religious watch list. We talked about that last week, and I'm happy to say hopefully by July 4th, we're going to be sending that resolution from Ohio. We're going to send it to every state legislature across the country and ask for them to join in that resolution. Some will, some won't, but we're going to do it. And let's see what happens. We're working with the Project Maple Leaf. We're a little quiet about that because we are diligently organizing it, putting it together. It's going to take a lot of time to pull that together. But in the meantime, we're going to start taking some action. Why? Because freedom and liberty is at stake. Here in the United States, we're learning about a lot of things that our government may be hiding from us. We're going to be talking about that. I think a lot is being hidden from us regarding Ukraine. I'll touch a little bit about that in a few minutes. But we need to wake up. We really need to wake up here in the United States. All right, so let's move on, folks. So Trudeau visited the White House. Listen, we wish him and his family well. Like I said, we don't want to see anybody sick, but he needs to be removed from office. Biden needs to be removed from office. And the people around the world who have become totalitarian dictators, they need to be removed from office. Now, Joe Biden, pick a war. Remember I've said to the American people over and over again for at least a year and a half, I used to call it Joe Biden's Vietnam, right? Well, here we go again, Vietnam all over again. Well, truly, we're getting there. I got to tell you something, folks. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I really don't. I don't fall victim to those things. I try to connect dots based on the totality of information and intelligence I get on any given issue. But I'm beginning to connect some dots regarding the Democrat Communist Party of this country and Joe Biden. They truly, in my view, again, for the fact checkers, my view, it appears to me that they're looking for a major distraction from the domestic problems that we're facing here in the United States. And you know, the distraction called Ukraine is starting to wear out. It's starting to wear out thin. And there's another side to this story that is beginning to surface. And I got to give Tucker Carlson some credit that he reported on the other side of this story. And part of the other side is this. And I'll touch just briefly on it because it really gets comprehensive. But I'll touch briefly on it because we have a few other things to talk about. Vladimir Putin continuously warned Joe Biden for such a long time to ensure that Ukraine would not become a member of NATO. We all know that. But Joe Biden kept on poking his finger, and I've said this over and over again, in Vladimir Putin's face. Well, it all added up to what? To an invasion of Ukraine. Now, what was going on in Ukraine before all this happened? Well, we have reports, and again, reports. I'm not going to say anything's fact until we confirm it, but they're from credible people, that there were Russians in the Donbass region and other areas of Ukraine who have been persecuted by Nazis. Now, I've heard that story over and over again, but now we're starting to get that story more and more, but from credible people. So if that's the case, the American people need to know it. If it's not the case, we need to know it. But I'd like to know why our government's not addressing that. Now, the killing of children and civilians, folks, that is unacceptable. I've said it all along. I call any military force that bombs civilians and kills innocent people, they become nothing more than street thugs. I'm against that. We should never support that. And I think that's where Putin failed in his non-strategy and tactics in this war. But the point that I'm bringing out is that aside from that horrific scenes that we see, how did we get here? How did the United States of America get involved in what now I believe, not a fact, I believe to be a proxy war with Russia? I believe the United States government is deeply involved in this war, and that Zelensky, to me, folks, I'm getting tired of the guy myself. Every night there's a press conference. It's like a reality show to this guy. My goodness, when does it end? Billions and billions of United States taxpayer dollars going to a war that's not going to end. What's it sound like? Those of you my age, those of you who have lived through Vietnam, what does it sound like? The young people don't know what it sounds like because they never heard the sound of Hanoi, of Saigon, of Laos, of Cambodia. They never heard the sound of an assassination that we all saw at that time on the streets of Saigon. They never heard the sound of a president of the United States in the past saying, we're going to just send a few advisors. And then from advisors, it went to other diplomats in the embassy. And then you had advisors and diplomats. Well, we'll send some special forces. And I'll tell you what, let's send weapons to keep the Viet Cong north of the border. And then it all ended up with 50,000 American troops plus killed in action. Hundreds of thousands and 1 million people or so wounded. And a country totally destroyed. And I see this nightmare, this scenario, over and over and over again now happening. Billions, not millions, billions of American taxpayer money going to Ukraine. Why and why and why and why this war is not over right now is beyond my comprehension. Beyond my comprehension. The problem I see, though, is that there's an escalation of this war being caused again by Joe Biden. By Joe Biden. Joe Biden decides to send Ukraine a weapon, or weapons, if you will, that are tantamount to long-range missiles, right? Well, what are they going to do with these long-range missiles? I know about those missiles. A lot of military veterans know about those missiles. Folks, the weapons that the Biden administration gave Ukraine, from what I understand, can reach the Russian homeland. Are you kidding me, Joe? Are you kidding me? You gave Ukrainian military forces a weapon that they're not trained in, from what I am told, that can be used to strike the Russian homeland. Do you realize, Joe, that if somebody does that, either intentionally or unintentionally, what's going to happen? You see, folks, when you have incompetent people in the White House, when you have a military Joint Chiefs of Staff who, I don't know what's happened to them, more concerned about training our troops about, well, It's not sir. It's not Mr. Well, it may be a male. Oh, that's a female. Don't say this. Don't say that. By the way, when you see our enemy, treat them nice now. Treat them nice. All right. Find out what sex they are, because you can't put the enemy in this prison camp if they're males and they're females. Folks, I'm not exaggerating. This is what's going on in the United States military. I got a videotape. I have it of some sort of a military recruit, all right? Maybe a little bit more than a recruit. I don't know if it was a Marine or a soldier. I just couldn't believe what I saw. Telling off their drill instructor, telling off their superior officer. I mean, literally telling this drill instructor off in front of a whole other number of troops. I've got to tell you, when I was in the military, you tell a drill instructor off, he'll plant your head into a wall. You'll never, ever again tell that drill instructor off. Oh, but that's too violent. We can't do that. Well, you know what? The result of us not doing that is what we're seeing today. You see the commercials, folks? I've seen a few of them. The Russian military commercials with their Spetsnaz forces, their tough elite forces, doing push-ups, doing sit-ups. The Chinese Communist Party, sit-ups, push-ups. And then you come to the United States military, who's wearing a signia that has nothing to do with the military on the uniform, who's wearing pink sneakers. What in the world is going on here? So I tell the American people, Democrat conservatives, you better get out and vote, because Russia may be one of those countries we end up in a ground war with. I believe we're at war with them now. Ukraine is just a puppet, if you will. So there'll be more politicians going down. They're going to join the reality show with Zelensky. They're going to take the pictures. $88 billion, something like that. Now, I have been told, I don't know this is fact, but I share this with you because these are the things going around. And I'm pretty sure there's some truth to a lot of what I'm being told. But this is a little unnerving, a little startling to me. So all this money is going to Ukraine, and I am told, and we'll check it, and if it's not true, we're going to tell you, that the president of Ukraine has $1 million mansion in Florida. So we'll check into that. And if it's not true, we're going to let you know. And if it's true, we're going to let you know. And if it's true, I want my $1 million back. I want part of my $88 million back. So we'll see. There's another side to this story. Another side to this story. And I got to tell you, folks, if I had my way, maybe one day I'll have my way. But if I had my way now, I would follow the edict of our first president of the United States, George Washington, and says what? What did he say? Don't get involved in foreign military conflicts. You're not going to win. And he was right. First president of the United States, George Washington. All right, so pick your war. Russia? Well, we could probably pretty much be sure we might end up in a war with Russia. And by the way, on top of what I just shared with you, a lot of Americans don't know this. There are 100,000 troops in Europe. And now they're being deployed in the Polish-Russian border. Now, is that a provocation? Well, Biden doesn't say it's a provocation. We're defending part of a NATO member. What if Russia put thousands of troops on the Mexican border? What if that happened? Or better yet, what can happen, which has happened, but I mean really massively happened, what if 100,000 Russian troops went to Cuba and they decided to put missiles there? It happened once before, right? In the 60s, John F. Kennedy put a blockade there. We almost ended up in a nuclear war. So what's Joe going to do? What are you going to do, Joe, if they're going to be 150,000 Russian troops 90 miles away from Florida? What are you going to do? You're going to do what Putin did? You're going to take military action? Or are you going to sit back and say, hey, just take it easy, relax, don't worry, we'll handle it? Well, you're handling things well there, Joe. So now we got Russia. And from Russia, we're going to pick another country, China. Now, listen to this, folks. One of the leaders, military leaders of the Chinese Communist Party this week said this: if anyone dares to secede Taiwan from China, we will not hesitate to fight. We will fight at all costs, and we will fight to the very end. This is the only choice for China. What they're telling us, folks, They're telling Joe Biden and the United States, you better not stick your nose into our future military action against Taiwan. That is exactly what China is telling Joe Biden. They're going to do it, folks. They're going to do it. My guess is, it's only a guess, based on a lot of what we're seeing, if they're going to do anything, it has to be before November of 2022, because President Xi knows what's going to happen. So does Vladimir Putin. This country will no longer be weak. It'll take a little time, but we're going to become the very strong, powerful country we once were. But we can't fight a two-ocean war anymore. We can't fight 2-3 countries at one time anymore. But we should defend Taiwan. We should. But not now. We can't. We'll lose, folks. We'll lose. We just don't have the money, the firepower. I don't know if this generation has the will to fight, or the American people have the will to fight. And I'll explain why I believe next week or the week after why we need to defend Taiwan. Think about the domino effect. Think about when the communists take one country, they do not stop. So pick a war, Joe. Russia, China, how about Iran? Think about this, folks. One of our closest allies, maybe the closest, Israel. Joe Biden and the Democrats are abandoning Israel. They're just kind of turning their backs on them. They're letting Iran have their way with regard to nuclear arms. And yet Iran has said over and over and over again that they want to totally eliminate, blow Israel off the face of the earth. And Joe Biden, Joe, do you hear what they say? And you're going to disassemble what Trump did with regard to the Iranian nuclear negotiations? That's what he's going to do. Then you got all kinds of companies. They're scared. They're divesting all types of investments and everything you could imagine from Israel. So they're going to leave Israel to its own self. Now, I believe Israel could take care of itself. I believe that. No question about it. But we should always stand with Israel. Always stand with them and defend them. But Joe Biden, he says nothing. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. Folks, let me share this with you. Do you know that India is supposed to be an ally of the United States? An ally. A nuclear India, an ally. Well, recently, with regard to certain alliances now being created around the world, they've aligned themselves with Russia, with China, and with some other countries that, I'll tell you, folks, are very dangerous to the United States. So Joe Biden has destroyed our alliances. He's causing the NATO, the leaders of NATO countries, to run. I mean, they don't want to get involved in this mess that he's created. And so they're starting to scratch their heads. And watch Germany. Watch, folks. Watch them begin to just distance themselves. They're doing it right now a little bit, but watch it. Watch Poland. Watch other countries and other members of NATO. I know Sweden wants to get into NATO. So does Finland. Well, if you're from Sweden, we got Swedish people who watch, and other NATO countries, they watch. You can't count on the Biden administration helping defend your country if it's attacked. You see, the NATO membership, this is how much it's worth. I want to show it to you, folks. Let's see. Do I need this? No. This is how much it's worth. NATO membership. That's how much it's worth. Because the United States doesn't have the military power it once had. It will, I hope, dearly will in the future. We got the bravest, youngest men and women on earth in our military today, and we'll back them and protect them and defend them. And the best way we can do that is make sure that the people we elect to office don't do stupid things. And Joe Biden is doing stupid things. So now we had Russia, we have China, we got Iran. How about North Korea? The Rocket Man is launching a missile a week. God knows when he's going to make a mistake in Japan or some other ally of ours is going to get hit. But it could happen. It could happen. So here's what we have. A situation where Joe Biden is looking, as I said earlier, in my view, to cause a major distraction. Usually a war causes a distraction, which leads me to what I said to the American people a few weeks ago. Hug your children, because Right now, the recruitments of every military branch in the United States are catastrophically low. Low. And if we end up in a war, I'll tell you what's going to happen, folks. You're going to hear Joe Biden is going to say to us that we need to defend the national security interests of the United States. That's why we're going to go to war with Russia in somewhere on the face of the earth. That's why we're going to go to war with Iran. That's why we're going to go to war with China, because United States national security is at risk. It is now. The national security is the United States of America is at risk from who? From Joe Biden, the Democrat Communist Party. And the way you win that war, you do it without firing one shot. You do it without a protest, without a rally, but you do it within the framework of the law, and you go and get rid of them out of office on election day. Distractions. Distractions. That's why we got into this mess. Parents, you were distracted from getting involved in your PTO and parent-teacher groups. Teachers, you're distracted because you got a union more concerned about money, money, money than giving you the abilities and capabilities to teach. Because teachers of all, with cops following them, by the way, of all occupations have been enslaved to the Department of Education, which if I was president, I'd throw right out. We don't need a Department of Education from the federal government. You know who the Department of Education was when I was in school? My teacher. My teacher. That was the Department of Education. Get out of line, Mr. Rogers, and I'll show you something. I'll teach you something you'll never forget. We are being slowly dissected and just torn to shreds by politicians in this country. Do we surrender? Do we give up? No, we don't. We don't surrender. We don't give up because, as the Chinese Communist Party leader said, that China has no choice. We have no choice. We have no choice other than to fight, to win, or surrender. And I ain't surrendering. And that's why I've shared with people, especially from Canada, together. You see that video you saw at the opening? You know what the title of that video is? Together Forever. Together Forever. Got a lot of history with Canada. A lot that nobody wants to talk about. But we're joined together in the fight for freedom and liberty, in the fight for the freedom of speech, in the fight for freedom of religion, for the freedom of worship, for the fight of our lives. We're living in prophetic times. Just remember that. This is not new to God. In fact, it was prophesied by the prophets, and we're living. But now is our time. We can look back and say, that's what they did. That's what Moses did. Abraham did. Yeah, them guys and them gals, Ruth and Deborah and Naomi and all, they did. That's what they did in their time. Well, do you know 100 years from now, somebody is going to read what we did in our time? I want them to read that I and you and every American and Canadian and freedom-loving person across this planet, I want them to read that we did the best we could in our time so that they could be free. Now, before I close, I'll let you in on something. We are in the process, Campaign for America is in the process of creating a coalition, a global coalition with leaders that are going to represent each country, 2 leaders from every country. So if you're listening and you want to be part of this coalition, all we need is 2 people representing each country. You could be in government, out of government, but you need to know about the geopolitical situation around the world. And we're going to start to exchange information and intelligence on a global level. Believe me, folks, this is what we're working to do. We've been working to do that because we're finding out incredibly that the information in this broadcast is being spread, to places unbelievable. Couldn't imagine it. But it's helping people to understand that you're not alone. You're not alone. We're all in the same ship, but the ship that we're on is not going to sink. So we're doing all of this, folks, to pull things together so that we will win this war against communism and against the evil that has enveloped the world. So we're going to wrap it up. Thursday night, we'll have another great guest on our Canadian edition. And next Monday night, folks, we're planning to have Tanya Harding on. She is the Olympic skater for many years. I think it was back in the 90s. She has quite a story to tell us about what. Not going to talk about skating, but she's going to talk about how the Communist Party in China, in Beijing, treated our skaters, treated people who went to the Olympics, the last Olympics in Beijing. So we hope to have her on. Let's see what else. I guess that's it, folks. All right. I think I said enough, right? So that's it. So we continue to keep our nation in prayer, your nation's in prayer. Now I'm going to ask you something. You know, I hate to do this, but I got to. Okay. Folks, we put out a commercial, the one you just saw. We're asking people to make contributions. Why? Nobody gets paid here. But if you were to see this studio and we're growing, we're beginning to sense that it's going to grow and grow and grow. But our first objective and our primary objective is obviously, yes, the United States, but Canada. So when I mention our first objective is United States, it includes Canada because we're joined together. So we got to continue. We're doing a lot of good work. It's going to take a lot of time, but I got to get people in here. They're not going to get paid. We need the money for this, folks, paper and ink. And, I mean, things are so expensive and the internet prices have gone up. We did this out of our own pockets. I'm really, I mean, thousands of dollars, and I'm not crying the blues. I'm just saying, if you can help us, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to send everyone a personal letter. I know many of you who have donated. And look, folks, I understand things are tough. I don't care if it's $1, $2. They all add up. The number of people watching, those dollars add up. But we're really going to need some help going down the road. And it's like somebody said to me the other day, people in America, I can't explain what happens with Canadian elections. I really unfamiliar with the process there. But people in America, every day we get mail. Give to this politician, give to that one. And they donate. They donate thousands, hundreds, 50s, 10s. They're just donating a lot of money to these politicians. And then you never see the politician. You never see the politician. What I'm asking is that you give to us an organization that's working closely right now with some organizations in Canada, and you're going to see us. You're going to see us here every week. And I'm going to try my best when things settle down to come to Canada. I absolutely want to come to Canada. And I want to meet some of the fine people who prayed for us and supported us. So campaign, 4america.com. You go to our website, folks, and there's a little donate button. And like I said, somebody wrote to me and they said they only had, they actually donated $5. And they said to me, that's all they had. And they felt bad. I said, the widow's mite. I mean, think about that. The widow's mite, folks. Doesn't matter. You do the best you could. And that little, whether it be 5 or 1, the widow's mite is honored. And I feel that it is our time. We have a mission from God Almighty to preserve, protect, and defend the gifts of freedom and liberty he gave us. So there's my request. Campaign 4america.com. We've got some companies here in the States and in Canada. We're going to be sponsoring some programs. A company named Power Blast in Canada. They had a commercial on last week. We're going to run it for the next 4 weeks on our Canadian broadcast. And we've got some here in the United States that are coming on board. Together forever. Together forever. Don't forget those words. That's it, folks. So I thank you all for joining me here at the American edition of Campaign for America. We'll be back on Thursday night, the Canadian edition. And that's it, folks. Tomorrow's Flag Day of the United States. I fly my flag every day, but here in America, fly your flag proudly, the one with 50 stars. And always, always pray. There's power in prayer. So I leave you with this, folks, as I say good night. God bless you all, and thank you for joining me.